Joining us now is OG with stories trending around the world. Good morning, OG.
Happy Friday!
Happy Friday, TGIF.
Good morning. I knew you were going to wave. How are you?
I'm good.
All right. Well, good morning to you, viewers. We begin what's trending today in France, where two French doctors have sparked outrage after they were caught on television discussing Africa as the best destination to conduct tests for COVID-19 vaccine. In a viral video that was shared on social media, one of the doctors, Jean-Paul Mira, proposed the idea of testing new coronavirus vaccines on the African population to Camille Lotch, a research director at the French National Institute of Health and Medical Research. On the French television channel LCI, Dr. Jean-Paul was overheard saying, "If I can be proactive, shouldn't we do this study in Africa, where there are no masks, no treatment, no resuscitation, a bit like it's been done in some studies in AIDS, where among prostitutes we try things because they are exposed and they don't protect themselves." What do you think? The clip went viral after Cameroonian football legend Samuel Eto'o shared the video on his social media page with the caption, "Assassins." The footballer also went on his Instagram page to post the video with the caption, "Africa is not your playground." Another viral tweet was from Reem Sarah, a PhD student and French researcher, who wrote, "This is horrific. Two French doctors on live television are discussing how a potential new treatment against COVID-19 should be first tested in Africa, where there are no masks, no treatment, no reanimation, the same way experimental treatment for AIDS was done on prostitutes." Other users denounced the colonialist mindset of the two French doctors. One user, D. Jurit, wrote, "Jean-Paul Mira is the president of the French Intensive Care Society, INTIFIS, in Paris. This man has publicly suggested that COVID-19 test vaccinations should be conducted in Africa, just as the French did 60 years ago during the colonial times. #coronavirus.
Definitely the most horrific news, or the most horrific thing I have seen coming out of the news in years, to be honest. Like the fact that, and we can save the discussion about France for another day, because France as a whole and their colonial mindset and what they continue to do is a whole discussion on its own. But to have two doctors on live television actually showcasing the fact that they really do see Africa as their testing ground still is horrific. It is disgusting. It is disgraceful. And quite frankly, if they're not called out, penalized, fined, in some kind of way held accountable for this ridiculous suggestion, then there's no justice being given to this at all. This was allowed to happen.
Right.
Well, clearly, there is very serious controversy in France at the moment, because of the number of cases that they have had that have also been increasing. On one hand, you have, a medical doctor, Didier Raoult, who is very popular in France, insisting that anti-malaria drug, either hydroxychloroquine, HCQ, or chloroquine itself, could be used, in his view. And, his medical center has been attracting a lot of attention. That's the local conversation. Before this president of the French Intensive Care Unit and his colleague came forward and said that they should do the test in Africa. And what is the excuse that is given? The excuse is that one has been done before with prostitutes in Africa with regard to HIV/AIDS. And that Africans seem to have a special resistance to pathogens. But what it indicates, and that's why a number of persons have protested, is that this is a case of normalized racism.
I like that word.
And this is not the first time it has happened. Even in the United States, you will recall at a point, black people were used to test drugs for syphilis.
Yeah.
Now, the U.S. government will later have to make reparations and apologize for this. So the black man is seen more or less as a guinea pig.
An animal.
For all kinds of things, So that's why those who complain about racism seem to have a very good point. However, do we have the capacity in Africa to make sure that nobody comes to Africa to come and use our people as guinea pigs? So vigilance will be required on the part of scientists, institutions, and governments in Africa, because we were all here when Africa was even turned into a dumping ground for wastes in Europe. You recall the famous case of cocoa in Nigeria, where, you know, waste from Europe were dumped here.
EU policy even supported
it. And it draws our attention to the imbalance in the relationship between the North and South and the mindset of, European intellectuals about the place of Africa in the scheme of things. But vigilance is what we require. No country should allow its citizens to be used as guinea pigs. Whether those persons are prostitutes or news
I mean, they even made mention
teachers.
of that on television.
How disgraceful.
But also, the television station has not said anything. They have taken off the television show off their social media platforms. They have not even apologized about the show because the show aired yesterday, I believe. And, you know, they haven't said anything about it. Even the research organization still, I think they came out to debunk this story, saying that we, the social media people, are misinterpreting what they were saying.
There's nothing
and
to
that, you know, they were only just being concerned about Africa, that Africa should be part of the whole research as well, not to be forgotten.
Should we get into a discussion on how HIV even came into Africa to begin with? Should we get into a discussion on how Africa has been their dumping ground in every single way that they can find? Should we get into a discussion about the fact that France is still one of the worst culprits? So this is even, there's just too much to discuss here. It is disgraceful.
There's a standard international protocol for testing drugs. And, you know, you test first on animals, you do clinical trials before you test it on human beings.
Yes.
And if anybody is looking for a vaccine for COVID-19, there are more cases in Europe.
Yes,
Thank you.
actually,
test yourselves.
Europe is the better place to test it.
Thank you.
Because
Africa,
in terms of numbers, we're still far behind.
We are so far behind. In Africa, there's about, almost 250 deaths in Africa recorded so far. And in Europe or Africa, it's in thousands.
In Italy, there's over 10,000. That's in one country alone. They should sit there and they should test it in France. They should test themselves. That's what they should go and do. And they shouldn't come anywhere near us, please.
Anyway, do you have another story?
Horrible story. Well, let's take a story in Nigeria. The daughter of President Muhammadu Buhari, who self-isolated after a trip to the United Kingdom, has reunited with her family members. You know, on March 17th, the Ministry of Health had urged Nigerians who recently returned from trips overseas to isolate themselves for 2 weeks in order to curtail the spread of coronavirus. On Thursday evening, the First Lady, Aisha Buhari, announced in a tweet that her daughter was out of self-isolation. The First Lady's tweet read, "It's a thing of joy and gratitude to Almighty God to reunite with my daughter after she had been in isolation for 14 days immediately she landed in Nigeria. While I am wishing all those infected for a speedy recovery, I pray for the end of this pandemic. Hashtag Abuja Scale Up."
Well, I think we should commend the First Lady. When she first came out to announce that one of our daughters who had returned was going to go into self-isolation, we had said on this program that she was showing very good example because she has tried to follow the standard procedure. And the young lady's time in self-isolation expired on April 2. And having not shown any symptoms, she has reunited with her family. And that's what we say to the big men and their wives who are wasting testing kits, even when they have not shown any symptoms, even when they have not done any self-isolation. In this particular case, the First Lady has not told us that the daughter had gone for any test and tested negative. She has followed the standard procedure, and we are happy, we rejoice with her, that our daughter is in very good health, and I think that other Nigerians who are in high places should know that, you know, it's not about going to test. It's about showing the right example, in line with the guidelines that have been prescribed for everyone.
I agree with you.
Simple as ABC.
Yeah, but she need not come out to say whether her daughter tested positive or not. You know, I mean, I think
her daughter wasn't tested at all.
I know whether it was. I mean, she need not to say that because really it is for isolation.
It's not a badge of honor and a status thing
in
Nigeria. Governor XYZ has tested negative. His wife also tested negative.
The conversation of the beer parlor. Everybody should walk in with their status.
I mean, I don't understand why they should even do that. But I think it's a great example that she has put in place.
Maybe they will use their test results to campaign for election.
Or maybe they could even frame it up and put as a certificate in their homes. I mean, we've seen that happen.
So, vote for him, the governor that tested negative for coronavirus. He deserves a second time.
You're going to make me cry from laughter on set.
All right, I feel like we should take our final story in the U.S., if we could do that. Our final story is an inspiring story, which I love.
Brilliant.
It is an inspiring one. The oldest coronavirus survivor, William Bill Lapshys, has celebrated his 104th birthday with a social distancing party just days after he was discharged from the hospital. William, a U.S. World War II veteran who also survived the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, was living in a veteran's home in Oregon when on March 11th, medical results revealed that he tested positive for the virus alongside another man at the veteran's home who eventually died from the disease. On Wednesday, his family as well as friends were said to have flooded the veteran's home carrying balloons and cakes to celebrate his recovery from the virus on his birthday with a social distancing party.
You know, this is the best news we can possibly end with.
For the whole week.
Spanish flu, World War II,
the Great
coronavirus.
Depression, I mean, everything.
Just shows you that we are all made differently.
Yes.
He may be 104, but he has a very good, strong immune system.
Yes.
Before him, there was also a woman of 103 years who also managed to beat it. But at the same time, you have persons who are much younger than them.
Yes.
The UK is just talking about Edis, you know, who died at 78 as a result of a coronavirus. And then you have in the same UK a young child of 14.
There was one of 12 as well.
There was one of 12.
Yes, you know, young people.
Died. Yes.
So you see that, you know, this thing varies from one person to the other. It depends on the nature of your, you know, infection, whether it's mild or critical or severe.
And that's why people shouldn't take this virus
And as I said
lightly.
earlier on, you know, here in Nigeria, we're just lucky.
Yeah.
Most of the cases we have are mild.
Mild.
And maybe perhaps because these are imported, it's an imported, you know, affliction. And many people have been able to recover most quickly. But we'll congratulate him.
Yes.
And we hope there will be more of such happy stories from the United States and elsewhere in the world.
elsewhere. We've seen other women also, like you said, there was a 93-year-old that was recently, that just recovered as well. The first case, I believe, was a 101-year-old Chinese woman, I think.
103.
103. And then, you know, the fact still remains that we don't still know a lot about this virus.
Exactly.
How it's happening. Only recently, they were, you know, they announced that, you know, people should now wear masks. You know, they have retracted their statements and all of that. So
It's so unique. It's so
such
new.
a unique virus.
A lot of research still to do, and that's why everyone has to be careful. And it's not good to put certain label on things. Young people aren't going to fall sick, or this because, hey, we're seeing all sorts of cases now.
I love the recovery stories, though. I mean, it's just really encouraging to see that a lot more people are recovering.
Look, out of the 7.8 billion people in the world, the percentage of persons that have been affected is actually about 0.1% of the world population. And out of about 25,000 that have died, you have over 151,000 that have recovered. But the nature of the disease itself is so scary that the world has every reason to worry, and people have every reason to be careful.
Correct.
Absolutely. OG, thank you for watching.
Thank you very much,
Have a great weekend.
You guys have a great weekend, too.